Okay, Brian Blake here again. So I wanted to talk more about the target data that the video I made yesterday. So first off, I'm not trying to bash or say targets are no good or they don't have their place. I just think they need some improvement if we're going to allow national records and national championships to be shot on them. That's just my opinion. But this data doesn't lie. This is the data that I was given, results from an actual 1,000-yard club match, 2 shooters, 45 shooters, pair fire each time. What I've done is taken and found the best average that I could with this. So you can see that shot's lined up, that shot's lined up, that shot's lined up, and move that back. If we look here, that shot's very close, that shot's very close, pretty close. So this is what I would call the best average. Okay, so then I've taken that and then I've basically screenshot that. So basically you could ignore the paper target white lines because we've found that best average. Now we're just looking at physical holes relative to the e-target rings. What I've circled in red is every shot that the e-target scored a 9, that's actually a 10. So let's just count those. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We lost 7 points. Okay, that are actually in. Like Norm Harold taught me, if you got to look twice, it's in. If you zoom in on this, that one is in. That one is touching. That one's obviously in. That one's obviously in. That one's obviously, touching. That one is obviously, that's inboard, and that was scored an 8. Okay, this one that was scored an 8 over here, you can see it's still an 8, so that one didn't matter. These two that were, let's see, no, so I'm sorry, not that one, just this one. You maybe lost 1x right there. So, and this one, if you look, it kind of ripped into it, so that one maybe could have been an X. But I'm really just talking points. What's interesting with this data, nowhere on here did the e-target favor the shooter, meaning give them a point that they didn't actually shoot. And I find that interesting. Obviously the e-target's not trying to be malicious and just give us the lower value, but it's interesting data that some of these shots that were close, like this one, see that one lines up perfectly. That one very easily could have been out and then gave us the higher value, but there's none that do that. Another thing I find interesting is those 2 holes right there, and if we zoom in on the target of those 2 holes, that's the most perfect round hole on that paper target as you could make. For there to be, say there's 2 holes went in that exact same hole, it's possible, but it's not probable. It's just interesting. Now where that other hole is, I don't know. So let's just conclude it had to have went exactly in that same hole. But it's very interesting when you look at this stuff that that was obviously in. This one here, if you look at where the paper torn, it is, you could say no, that's not quite in. It's close. That one, that's beefy in, right? So, and we look over here, you can see that one's definitely in. That's not even questionable. So, and you can see that one's obviously in. This is what I'm talking about. Let's, how many guys maybe potentially won nationals, but they didn't win nationals? You know what I mean? Like, because their target, like this one here, in 90 shots, which is more than you're going to shoot at a nationals, you're going to shoot 60. We lost 7 points in 90 shots, right? So that's in 60 shots, that's 4.5, 5 points, or 4 points. You know how big that is when you look at the top 10 positions at a national event? There's not 4 points separating all of them. Yet we're doing national championships for multiple years on this data, on these systems. Now, I'm not saying those systems aren't better. I know that the frames at the national event, where the national events Railhead F-Class last 2 years are not rigid frames. They're on carriers. They're not cantilevers. They are, ones that go straight up and down. So that is probably better. But are these clubs that are hosting these events verifying this data? What can we do to make this better? That's all I'm trying to do is raise awareness here. But no, we wouldn't have won that match that we shot all this on anyways. But to say, hey, you're going to give up 7 points over these 90 shots right off the bat, it's like, man, that's a ton, where 1 point separates these top shooters. So anyways, just wanted to give some more clarification on points lost or gained. I don't see any that were gained. They were only lost. And that's where I'm at. But all these circle in red were given 9s by the E-target. So you can kind of see, when you get a score or that shot's just barely out, it doesn't ever seem to be it was out and then it gave you the higher value. It's just ironically always the lesser value.